Everybody, how are you? Welcome to Tuesday Talks with Margaret and Stephanie and Donna Wilburn this week. We're going to talk about high conflict custody cases, and we're going to get started. I do want to make a few comments. It is the key pivotal week for voting. So I think, Stephanie, you have your ballot.
I do. I got my ballot in the mail. I was so excited. You have no idea. It's a lot bigger than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it is.
But yes, gotta flip it over though, guys. Flip it over. That's the important part, because right here, Department B. You see that?
Yes.
That's what we need to look at right there.
Department B, Pickard, pick Pickard for Department B. So make sure you do that. And then when you get your the back of the envelope, that's the front, the back, you got to sign. If you don't sign it, they will call you back and you'll have to track them down. And
yes, so there's a lot of writing on here with a lot of instructions. So make sure you read that to do it the correct way. So I'm so excited that we got this. I know last week we had images that we posted, but it's so much nicer to actually have it right here. And I have been texting all my friends. These are people you need to vote for. So make sure you check the mail on that. And it comes with a really cool I voted sticker. So,
oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, I'll have to check that out.
So I'm totally going to, as soon as I mail that in, put this on and, you know, have my little
sticker. Ready.
But we also have Donna Wilburn on today. So, okay, today we're actually going to talk about high conflict cases. So Donna here is a licensed marriage and family therapist that will be kind of joining us in this discussion. So I am going to actually tell the world a little bit about Donna here. So Donna's lived in Las Vegas for over 40 years and invests most of her time and energy into creating change in the attitudes of legislators as well as the public regarding the stigma surrounding mental health, which is so important, and encouraging access to resources. Donna has focused on helping families develop successful strategies after divorce. She is considered an expert on high conflict divorce and often provides the court with services and evaluations for children. She is currently an intern in a clinical doctoral program specializing in child and adolescent development also. Oh my goodness, that's a lot of stuff that you have going on there. Hello, Donna.
Hi, I like to keep busy.
You do, so thanks for coming on so we can have this discussion. We've had a lot of professional connections in the past and we've done some things together, and so it's good to have this together today.
I think we have a common mission, those kids.
Education about these cases and the damage that conflict does to children.
So great. So I'm sure everybody is as interested as I am about how you two work together. So courtroom and also mental health provider, right? So how exactly is it that you deal with high conflict cases in the courtroom in collaboration with you as a treatment provider, Donna? So let's kind of take a step back. First of all, I don't even know the exact definition of what a high conflict case is. So Margaret, what exactly is that?
So when we really define a high conflict custody case as one is what we also call a frequent flyer in the family court. We see them a lot. They come back, they have disputes over everything from child exchanges at school to who can be at a child's performance to who's going to transport a child, or if a parent has to transport a child to an extracurricular activities. So really parents who have a very difficult time working cooperatively together to resolve the daily disputes that parents have when they share custody. So that's from the court perspective. Donna, do you want to just bring in a little bit more on the mental health perspective?
Yeah, so from the mental health perspective, we have to look at what are some of those underlying factors that are making it difficult for that person to cooperate well. And so what tends to happen is whether it's like deep insecurities or trauma, parties, one or both, they get triggered when they're talking to each other. They can't resolve conflict because their ego or insecurity is interfering. So high conflict personality, high conflict divorce. When you're talking about a high conflict person, you're talking about someone who has a hard time resolving conflict, empathizing with the other party, prioritizing the children over themselves. And so it causes a lot of stress in the family.
And there's a really good saying that we have in the family court. It's, do you love your children more than you hate your ex? And that's really powerful because a high conflict personality can't distinguish that, and they can't prioritize the health and the mental well-being of their child over what their own selfish needs are. And it can create and destroy families and children. So it's really important that we have this conversation, and it's a constant problem within a lot of family court systems. In fact, I think the statistic is like 80% of family court cases are made up of just the high conflict frequent flyers, whereas most cases can be worked out, but 80% of the court's time is on just a very small 20% of the actual caseload.
Mhm. So Margaret, didn't you actually develop the UNLV Cooperative Parenting Program? Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Absolutely. So I taught at UNLV from 2003 to 2015, and one of my absolute pet projects was bringing the Cooperative Parenting Program to UNLV. So I taught that. It was an 8-week series, and we had over 1,500 family court litigants that were ordered to take the course at one time or another. And it was a really interesting kind of a discussion for 8 weeks about what conflict does to kids and how each parent can position themselves to have the stability to raise healthy, productive children into healthy, productive adults. And that's really our mission as parents. But if a child's caught in the middle of their parents' conflict, it's really hard for them to develop healthy relationships, have, healthy mental wellness, to really understand the world. And so they get caught in the middle of that conflict. And so the Cooperative Parenting Program was really important and significantly reduced litigation rates among families that took parents that took the class. I never put them in the same class. I'd put one in a Tuesday class, one in a Saturday class, so their fight or flight reaction wasn't up, so they could talk and they could not vent, because it wasn't a venting class. It was more about educating and learning and understanding how they individually can change their child's world into a more positive environment.
Wow, that's amazing.
Super fun. I loved it. Donna came and talked a couple of times, and it was a great program. I really, really enjoyed it.
That's kind of how we met, how we found each other, was through Margaret doing that cooperative parenting. Then I became trained in providing that service on a smaller scale. And so once that's how we realized that both of us are really working towards preventing children from being triangulated into that parent conflict.
It's kismet. It's like, that's why you guys are meant to meet, right?
Yeah.
So Donna, what are the different types of co-parenting relationships?
So there's the cooperative co-parenting, where people get along fine. They know they're separated. They aren't still in pain from the separation. They've recovered, they've healed, and they can actually communicate with each other without feeling these intense anger or fear or whatever. So those are, like Margaret was saying, you don't see those so much in the court system because they're fine. They're getting along fine. And as Margaret was talking about how so much of the court cases are made up of these high conflict cases, it dawned on me how important it is to have a judge who knows this dynamic, who is aware of what high conflict is, because I've seen many cases come and go where somebody was not really aware of how you have to really treat a high conflict case different than a cooperative parenting case. And so I use the two operating systems, where cooperative parenting use the cooperative operating system, and you can have more flexibility and you can have different expectations. But with high conflict cases, you use more of a parallel parenting system, which has a lot more rules, a lot more detail, a lot more boundaries, and maybe even some oversight.
Oh, wow.
And really, that's because in a lot of these high conflict parenting cases, your high conflict parent doesn't have boundaries. So the court has to build those boundaries in and say, here's your timeshare. And then the other parent's timeshare is, say, Monday at 3:00 to after school to the following Friday. And you have to let the other parent have their timeshare. You can't interfere. You can't say, oh, the kid's sick, the kid doesn't want to go. That is not how cooperative parenting works. We share our children back and forth in a healthy environment.
Yeah, and actually that was my next question. What are the different ways that the court can manage these type of cases? So
one of the things that I really push is having a very structured parenting plan. So I'll give you an example, making sure that we had it today in court, that we had a case where we were having a parent pick a child up at Friday and then dropping off on Monday. What does that mean? What time on Friday is the pickup, and who's doing the pickup, and what time on Monday is the drop off, and who's doing the drop off? So a parenting plan, and we have a really detailed parenting plan that we can post, and it basically makes suggestions. It actually gives parameters and says, here's when the weekend starts. It starts at 3:00 after school. The receiving parent's going to pick up the child from school, and then on Monday they'll drop the child off at school, and then the other parent's timeshare will begin. And during each parent's timeshare, the other parent isn't to interfere, isn't to show up at school, isn't to go through the child's backpack and pull out all their artwork so the other parent doesn't get to see it. So it's a lot about the detail in the plan. And then, as Donna said, making sure that those rules are enforced by the court, whether that's doing a 2-for-1 makeup. If you deny a parent of a holiday period or a timeshare, then you have to give up 2 days for every 1 day you deprived them of or interfered with their custodial time, or whether that's shifting fees. There's a lot of creative things to do. And parents have to understand that them sharing a joint custody relationship is contingent on them getting along and supporting the other parent's relationship.
So I'm starting now to understand why a mental health provider, especially an MFT, a marriage and family therapist, is so important. So Donna, what are some strategies that you can implement to help with all of this? That's very complicated. It's a lot of stuff that really needs to be discussed.
It is. And what really helps is that team approach where you got the court and the therapist and parents all working together. Mm-hmm. So as a therapist, I can't really enforce anything or apply any of those consequences or change much. But with the help of the court, like Margaret was saying, with the accountability and the consequences, I can coach the parents on how to appropriately communicate or behave. And if they don't, then I can report and the court can impose whatever the consequences are. So a couple of things, there's like the cooperative parenting course is really good. And that has really enlightened so many people as to like what's happening with their child and why this is so important to find a way to let your child have some healthy development. But if that doesn't work, then there's a service, it's parent coaching, and it's more, really more in depth, and it can go from monitoring every bit of communication to meeting with the child and making sure that they're not receiving inappropriate information or parent point of view, or monitoring how parents are cooperating with each other. And then we really need the courts to be involved in those consequences. And I have to tell you, like, I appreciate the strength that Margaret has, where she does like understand the need for accountability. And that's why I get a lot coming in my office, is because there wasn't accountability.
Yeah. Right. And they think, especially high conflict parents, they think they can get away with anything. And it's never their fault. They always have a justification why it's the therapist, it's the court, it's somebody else. And they have a very difficult time saying, oh, so I need to change. They don't do that. And so it's really about having at least one stable parent and educating the parents and enforcing the court's orders with consequences that make a difference to that parent. And those have to be individualized.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like, there's probably a lot of different examples of interventions and things that you use with parents and children, correct? So yeah,
like, so education, psychoeducation is huge. I try to let the parents really clarify with them why this is so dangerous for their children, why it's so damaging for their children, mm-hmm. the long-term effect of that, if they continue this, the stress that it's causing their child right now. I have had kids who literally had suicidal thoughts because this pressure of being triangulated into that conflict was so heavy that they couldn't think of another way out. So it can get really extreme. And so psychoeducation, then I have to have some good boundaries, and I have to monitor that they're following the rules. And that may mean I'm on their OFW, or they CC me on all emails.
Our family with OFW, define it. Right. Our family with a great resource.
Not everybody knows that, I guess.
We use it as an acronym.
But it's really, you have to really put the effort in there to help these parents, because like Margaret was saying, they will find a loophole, or if there's if there's a vague rule, they will find a way to exploit that rule. And so I'm a big fan of those parenting plans where they're very detailed and specific parenting plans.
And what really scares me is those parents that think it's so funny when they make the other parent frustrated. And so let's say that they don't eat, let's say dad's time, pickup time is 5 o'clock, and dad shows up at 4:50. Kids are ready, dad's ready, and mom says, well, though it's 5 o'clock, you have to wait till 5 o'clock. And so basically holds the kids hostage till 5 o'clock, and mom laughs, and let's say her friends are over and they all laugh at how frustrated dad is getting. And that's not healthy for kids, because kids then go into two different worlds, where in mom's house, they can't talk about dad, and in dad's house, they can't talk about mom. And that leads to significant mental health problems. And Dawn and I have discussed the fact that we would see a lot of kids in juvenile justice with mental health and substance abuse, drug problems, because they can't deal with this conflict. They're caught in the middle of trying to make two people happy, and that's not the kid's job.
There's a high risk of addiction for this crowd.
Mhm.
Right.
So are there any tips or resources that either of you, Margaret or Donna, have, in addition to the cooperative parenting classes, that would be helpful for families and especially parents who are dealing with situations like this, or children, resources for children who are dealing with parents who are going through a divorce case?
Well, I'll start from the court's perspective. So from the court's perspective, it's really important that parents understand first, if you're just at the beginning of this process and you have to negotiate the parenting plan, just know that every department has what we call a default holiday schedule. So if the parents can't agree, the court will say, here's the default plan, and it's usually sharing every other holiday. That's important to know, because I can't tell you how many high conflict parents will say, you're never going to ever see the kids on Christmas. You'll never see them. Well, no, ask what the court has as a default plan if you can't reach an agreement. And then from there, we have a lot of good strategies. I know my husband's firm, the Nevada Family Law Group, has an online high conflict parenting plan that's available to people, holiday schedule. And also it's important to recognize that finding a good therapist for your kiddo is really vital. And that's something that Donna does for reunification therapy and working with kids to understand that conflict.
So Donna, you're a resource then.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, even in this field, if you working with this high conflict crowd requires some special characteristics. You do have to be a firm therapist and not easily intimidated, because they do throw out a lot of threats because they get upset at your strategies. So a specialized family therapist who has experience working with personality disorders, who is good with working with very strong boundaries, and who is not intimidated by the forensic field or the court, or talking with, submitting reports or something like that, because you'll probably have to be involved in the court system.
And I think too, along those lines, one of the things that I look for when I face when kids have a therapist, is I always make sure the therapist has talked to both parents, so that the parent doesn't get entrenched in the parent who is really trying to alienate the child or interfere with the other parent's custodial time, and they just listen to that side. They need to hear both sides of the story in order to appropriately address the issues with the kids. And that's an important characteristic, I think, of a really—
Therapists can get triangulated too. They're human, and they can get caught up in one person's side, and then they can have a biased point of view. So you want to make sure, as a therapist, like Margaret was saying, that you try to keep objective point of view, and you get both perspectives from the parents and from the children. I interview children in both parents' homes, because the children are different. With one parent, they may say something different with the other parent. So I try to make sure I see the child while they're with each parent. That helps.
It's really interesting. I used to do a lot of child exchanges. So let's say that one parent was going to come and pick the kids up, but they couldn't do it in either parent's home because it wasn't safe. So like one parent would bring the children into the office, and the kids would say something like, "Don't leave, Daddy. I don't want to go. I hate Mommy. Don't leave, don't leave, don't leave." And then Mommy shows up, and the kids are like, "Mommy, we're so glad you're here." It's amazing how the kids just flip a switch. And that is a real good sign that the parents are really harming the children, because they're not allowing the child to love the other parent. And that is very damaging.
Yeah.
Oh,
red
gosh.
flag, red flag.
Tough jobs here. Okay, so my last question is for Margaret. Can you define what a healthy co-parenting relationship should look like?
Well, a healthy co-parenting relationship should really be one where you can participate in activities and you don't put the kids in the middle of the conflict. So let's say that a child has a violin concert. After the concert, both parents are there, hopefully sitting as close together as possible with their extended family. The child is free to come over and talk to both parents and doesn't feel like they have to choose, where am I going to sit? What am I going to do? I mean, I had 3 daughters that got married last year, and I share custody with my ex-husband, and my husband shares custody with his ex-wife. And we had a wonderful time. We had to get along. And I'm not saying that we're all best friends. Let's get that right. But we're at least civil and have dignity. One of the posts that I made on my ex-husband's birthday, I got a ton of comments on, because I said, I wish him the best, because if he does well, my kids do well. Mm-hmm. And that's a healthy, positive relationship, is to encourage my kids to have a healthy relationship with both parents. Don't make fun of the other parent. Encourage the child to give that other parent a call. In fact, On Mother's Day, every father should have encouraged their child to make that call.
Right.
That's healthy relationship building. And on Father's Day, every mother should encourage their child to write a card, draw a picture, whatever it is. And in my cooperative parenting class, I would say, moms, Father's Day is coming up. What are you going to do? And so many would say, it's not my job. Well, it is your job. You decided to have those kids, whether you have a dispute with the other parent, at least let your child have a healthy relationship. Otherwise, long-term, it's going to cause damage that really is irreversible.
That is so correct. Well, that is some good advice right there. So this was a really, really good discussion to have, I think. And I know next week on Tuesday Talks, we are actually going to talk about parenting plans. But in addition to next Tuesday, this coming Saturday, Donna, you're also doing a segment on your page that we'll also post on this Facebook page to let everybody know about. Can you tell everybody about what you're doing on Saturday?
Yeah, so we're doing some get to know your candidates better live video recordings, and we're going to have Margaret come on and give like a little bit more in depth about her own personal like education experience point of view as a judge. We want to know what she's going to do if she gets elected, or what she's going to bring to the bench. So trying to do that on this coming Saturday. It should be on Facebook Live, and we'll make sure to put a link or some kind of something on you guys' page so your folks can tune in.
Perfect. Yeah. That's exciting. I will definitely try to tune in. So Saturday, May 16th, and we'll post that on this Facebook page as well. And as usual, Margaret, we're on Facebook, so everybody knows how to find you here. Where else can everybody find you?
You can find me at Pickard 4, number 4 Judge on Twitter and Instagram. Please, this is an important week to vote. Make sure you vote and tell 10 of your friends who are Clark County voters to vote, because every vote counts. And please don't think if you don't know who the rest of the candidates are on the ballot, that's okay if you vote for 1 or 2 people. That's okay. It's free to return your ballots, turn your ballot in. I know she's like Deanna White, turn it on the back, get that little bubble filled in. And please vote this week, because it's important, as we've talked with Donna and I, we've talked about making sure you have experienced candidates in family court. It is literally one of the most difficult calendars a judge can have. And it's important that we have people who understand family dynamics and understand how to manage these cases. So vote. All right, you guys, we're going to see you next week. We'll talk about and join us on Saturday, and we'll make a post for Donna's Meet the Candidates, and then we'll get back on. We'll have another discussion. Bye, guys. Thanks.
Bye.